This is Don Hollenbeck at General Meade's Union Army headquarters somewhere behind the lines near Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. The situation here on this third day of July 1863 is grave indeed for the Union forces. 2 Confederate attacks have been repulsed in 2 days of heavy fighting, but the Northern casualties have been severe. The Union line is badly shaken, and there's serious concern as to whether it can successfully withstand the next attack that's expected at any minute from the crack Confederate troops of General Lee. And for the last 2 years, they've yet to lose a single battle in this war between the states. General George Gordon Meade, at a news conference held a few moments ago, announced...
Gettysburg, July 3rd, 1863. CBS is there.
Lee before Gettysburg, the high tide of the Confederacy. CBS asks you to imagine that our microphone is present at this decisive battle of the war between the states, between the North and the South, between the Union forces and the Confederates. All things are as they were then, except for one thing.
CBS is there.
This broadcast, produced and directed for Columbia by Robert Louis Cheon, is based on authentic historical facts and quotations. And now,
Gettysburg, July 3rd, 1863, and Don Hollenbeck.
This afternoon at Field Army headquarters is one of tension and suspense. This is the most serious moment of the war between the states. The next few hours will tell whether or not the Confederate tide can be checked. If Meade fails to hold Lee here at Gettysburg this afternoon, the nation's capital will be at the mercy of the victorious Confederate troops. President Lincoln will be under increased pressure to accept the Confederate demands for peace. At this very moment, according to CBS reports from Washington, the Vice President of the Confederacy, Mr. Alexander Stephens, is now at Fortress Monroe in Chesapeake Bay under a flag of truce awaiting to be received by President Lincoln. If Meade's army is defeated here today on the soil of Pennsylvania, there may be many more who will say that the war is hopeless, that the North had better make peace with the South. And that would mean a nation permanently divided. It would mean the dissolution of the Union. That is why military experts here at Gettysburg are convinced that this battle may be the turning point of the war. And here to weigh the possibilities of the situation is our own CBS military analyst, Major George Fielding Elliott.
It is now 10 minutes of 1. There has been an ominous silence over this Gettysburg battlefield since 11 o'clock this morning. Then General Slocum's Union Corps regained its position on Culp's Hill, the right anchor of the Union line. However, General George G. Meade, the Union Army commander, has not been deluded by this local success. He knows that General Robert E. Lee, the Confederate commander, has yet to throw the full might of his forces into a final attack. I am convinced on this third day of battle that the attack will not come at the Round Tops, the left anchor of the Union line, for good reasons, for 20,000 reasons, 20,000 dead and wounded Confederate and Union soldiers. I saw them fall in yesterday's violent fighting in a peach orchard and a wheat field when the Confederates under General Longstreet attacked the Union Third Corps under General Sickles. Also, I am reasonably sure that the Confederate attack will not be directed against the right flank of the Union line at Culp's Hill and Cemetery Hill. And here's why. The Confederates under Generals A.P. Hill and Ewell attacked there last night, and although they took a heavy toll in Northern casualties, they were beaten back by the troops under Union Generals Slocum and Howard. The only point of the Union line that the Confederates have yet to test is the center under General Hancock, and that's where I think the attack will come this afternoon. Major General George Gordon Meade has been in command of the Union Army of the Potomac for only 5 days. He is in a tight spot. I talked with him last night after a council of war at his headquarters. He admits that he is somewhat superior in numbers. He is far better off as regards supplies. His army is in good spirits under his leadership. He holds a strong position. But the Confederate troops here at Gettysburg are flushed with an unbroken string of victories. These men of Lee's Army of Northern Virginia have never been defeated. They believe they can do anything, and they are determined to smash this Union Army this afternoon, claim it as perhaps their final victim, and end this war. Confederate artillery has just come out of the woods opposite the center of the Union front. We have our CBS reporter right there. So go ahead, John Daly. Go ahead, Daly.
10 Confederate guns have been wheeled into position in front of me and a little bit to the left. From this distance, it's hard to tell whether they're trained here at the center or farther over on the line. The guns were brought out just a few moments ago, but the Confederates who brought them out have disappeared back into the woods, taking their horses with them, leaving the guns as far as we can see unattended. General Hunt, the Northern Artillery Commander, standing behind me here on the ridge, is examining the Confederate pieces through his field glasses and giving orders to his aides. It may be that the general will move up more Union artillery, although I don't see how that's possible. For Cemetery Ridge, here in plain view of the Confederates a mile away, is lined with Northern cannon almost wheel to wheel. There are over 80 guns on this ridge. There's no secret about it. The Confederates can certainly see them and can count them. Still no sign of any artillerymen around those Confederate cannon. Whether this means an immediate shelling, the beginning of the attack that we're expecting and waiting for, we just don't know. While we wait for the Confederates to make up their minds about those cannon over there, I want you to meet two privates from the Union ranks. First, Private John Burns, citizen volunteer, native of Gettysburg, cobbler by trade, and 72 years old. That's right, isn't it, Private Burns?
Yeah.
Private Burns has snow-white hair, deep-set eyes, 3 bandages, one on each arm, one on his left leg. You told me a while ago, Private Burns, that you got those wounds in the first day's fighting. Is that right?
Yeah.
Did you get them all at once?
No.
Private Burns is modest. The fact is, he's a veteran of the War of 1812. He's got a farm here at Gettysburg. And when the Confederates came, he got his old musket and powder horn and joined up with the famous Wisconsin Iron Brigade. In the fighting that followed, Burns was wounded in the right arm, taken to the rear, and his wound was dressed. He returned immediately to the front and was wounded in the other arm. He was taken to the rear again. His second wound was dressed, but he came back and was wounded a third time, this time in the left leg. But even that didn't stop him, because here he is with his rifle in his hand, waiting to see what those Confederate cannon over there in the distance are going to do. Right, Private Burns?
Yeah.
Well, don't you think you've done enough fighting for one man, Private Burns, especially for a man of your age? Don't you think that...
Listen, mister, don't start telling me where I belong.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way, Burns.
Well, then, why don't you say what you mean?
All right, I will. I'd like to know why you volunteered.
They took my cow. Ain't got no right taking my cow.
Is that the only reason you're fighting this war, for a cow?
One reason, mister. It's a good one, ain't it?
Well, what are some of the others?
I'm a farmer and a cobbler. I've lived on this little piece I got here for over 70 years. I'm not too old to work it, and I'm not too old to defend it. And, mister, I don't know whether you know this either, but if we lose this battle today, I not only lose my cow and my piece of property, but we lose the Union. We lose this country. And that's something I fought for in 1812, and I'm fighting for it again.
Thank you, Private Burns. It looks as though you're going to get a chance to do some more fighting this afternoon. There's still no sign of Confederate artillerymen around those cannon over there. And here's another Union soldier, Private Tom McGaw. He's tall and lanky, with freckles and a mess of red hair shooting out from under a blue cap. Well, what do you think about those Confederate cannon over there, Private? What do you think it means?
I don't know.
Well, how old are you, Private McGaw?
18.
Well, would you speak just a little bit louder, please?
18.
18. Well, I understand that that's the average age of half the Union Army here today, Tom. It seems awful young, doesn't it?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, why are there so many young ones like you here?
Well, after the Battle of Chancellorsville, most of the older fellas' time was up, so they went home.
Oh, I see. And then youngsters like you volunteered to fill the ranks.
No, sir. I was drafted.
Well, where are you from, Tom?
Illinois country.
And what were you doing when you were drafted?
Oh, working in my dad's store.
Are you married? Well, what are you blushing about? Have you got a sweetheart?
Oh, I guess so.
Does she write to you?
Oh, about every 2 weeks.
And who do you miss the most? Your mother or your sweetheart? You miss them both, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Well, how do you like the Army, Tom? Excuse me, Tom. The Confederates are moving more artillery out of the woods into the open position beyond the Emmitsburg Road, which runs diagonally through the battlefield. I can't see what's going on very well, because the guns are too far to my left, and the Cadore house out there in the middle of the battlefield is blocking my line of vision. But Jackson Beck, who's over on Big Round Top, 2 miles to my left, can see them better. So over to Jackson Beck.
75 guns.
It looks like the whole works this time, John. I'd say about 75 guns on good ground over on my right. They're moving them along the Emmitsburg Road from the peach orchard northward for about 1,300 yards. Some of the cannon are as close as 600 or 700 yards from the northern lines. The Confederates are beginning to point the guns, most of them are Parrots and Napoleons, toward the center of the Union line. In some of the interviews I've had here with the veteran Union officers, They say that they cannot recall such an unusually heavy concentration of Confederate artillery at any one point. Now, there's no telling how many more guns are screened in those woods further down to the center and on past the center, and all up and down that long Confederate line. Now, looking through my glasses from here, I can see that once again, as before, the Confederate artillerymen have taken their horses back into the woods. The guns are unmanned, but we're not forgetting that they can be fired at a moment's notice. All the cannoneers have to do is run out of the woods and let go. But Ken Roberts over at the far right of the Union line has news of cavalry action, so over to Ken Roberts.
I've just received a report that a heavy force of Confederate cavalry has ridden far around and behind this right flank of the Union Army, and at this moment has been intercepted and engaged by Union cavalry under Generals Kilpatrick and Gregg. It is almost certain that this surprise cavalry movement is a part of the Confederate tactics now shaping up rapidly. In other words, while the Confederate cavalry, presumably under General Stuart, is trying to turn the right flank of the Union Army, the main Confederate attack will try to break through its center. We haven't heard the Confederate artillery open fire yet. We have no news about the progress of the cavalry engagement, but we expect to hear in a moment or two. And while we're waiting, by special permission of Union General Howard, and with the consent of the man himself, I'm going to let you hear from a Confederate prisoner of war taken in the action on Culp's Hill early this morning. He's a huge, brawny man, about 6 feet tall, dark, sunburned, heavy, bushy beard. He's wearing reddish homespun pants, shirt, a broad-brimmed wool hat, and brand new shoes.
That's right. First shoes I ever had since this year war started.
Where'd you get them?
Over yonder, Gettysburg, day before yesterday, when we kicked the daylights out of the Yankees and threw them out of town.
Well, do you think you'll enjoy wearing those shoes in some northern prison camp?
Northern prison camp? Man, where you been this war? Don't you know Marsh Roberts going to bust this Yankee line wide open this afternoon and take me to Washington with him?
You're pretty confident, aren't you?
Well, sure. You remember what Marsh Roberts did to the Yanks at Manassas? Remember what he did at Sharpsburg?
You mean Antietam, don't you?
No, sir. I mean Sharpsburg. And Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville? Ha! Every time he was outnumbered 2-1. Every time we railed him. You trying to tell me that today's going to be any different?
Well, how about those new Spencer carbines the Yankee cavalry have here at Gettysburg? They're the first repeaters ever used in this war. They shoot 8 times, and yours only shoot once.
Yeah. We know how to aim, boy.
Then you don't think much of the Yanks as fighters.
Well, I suppose they'd fight pretty good if they didn't have to tote such big loads. You know, they're in the toting business. They ain't in the fighting business. Man alive, I don't see how they can move with all that stuff on their backs.
I forgot to ask your name, soldier. Where are you from?
Jim Crocker. I'm from Mississippi.
Well, if you're so certain of winning, maybe you'd like to tell us where General Lee is going to attack this afternoon.
What's the matter, boy? You scared, huh? You stick with me, I'll take care of you.
Well, I don't think you're going to laugh at this. This note that's just been handed to me says that your General Stuart's cavalry has been repulsed behind the Union lines and is riding back to the Confederate lines as fast as it can.
That ain't got nothing to do with the cannon up yonder. That's where the Yanks are going to get it.
Well, nothing's happened yet.
Well, something...
That was a cannon shot. About 2 miles to my left. There's another one, same direction. I can't see it to the center of the line, out of my range of view. So over to John Daly.
The Confederate artillerymen are swarming around their guns in plain sight of our position behind this little clump of trees. They've opened fire with fast guns. The Confederates are firing on us, the shells streaming right over our heads. The horses around us are rearing up. They're neighing in fright. One of them is running away. He's galloping past me out of the battlefield. Fire splinters and shells are flying through the air on this ridge just behind me. Artillerymen are falling. Bolts and iron axles, saws and rails are snapping like straws. Caissons are being blasted to death. The infantry out in front of me is huddled behind the stone wall. They're digging in behind every rock, crouching into every ditch. They're hugging this ground just as I am for dear life itself. The scouts of the Union guns are lifting. They're feeling out the range. They'll be coming loose in just a minute, I hope. The whole Confederate line running along Seminary Ridge, 1 mile across from me, has opened up. It's getting very hot here. I don't know how much longer I can stay on the air. A Union caisson behind me has just exploded. I've never heard such a cannonade as this.